Welcome to Carey Open, a podcast where we open a window into the world of Carey Baptist College. This episode is a recording from our chapel gathering called Karakia.
As we continue our journey in the book of 2 Kings, we might be somewhat surprised as we step into chapter 4. We come straight off the international stage, where Elisha was drawn into an attempt by the king of Israel to quash a Moabite rebellion. When consulted by Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, Elisha had proclaimed the word of the Lord to him, and the kings of Israel and Edom who were with him, seen water fill the valley for their parched armies, and seen the victory that he decreed over Moab come to pass. But now, far from the lofty heights of rulers and nations, we find Elisha among ordinary people. First, he helps an indebted woman with the miraculous provision of oil, so her sons do not need to be sold into slavery. And he'll go on to perform miracles of feeding during a famine. So in the center of this is this long, elaborate account, and we come unexpectedly face to face with a remarkable woman whose tenacious, faith-filled spirit will momentarily shine almost as brightly as Elisha. And her compelling offer of hospitality will set in motion an astounding chain of mutually transformative events that the woman, her family, and even the prophet himself get caught up in. And it all starts with a meal. Have you invited anyone interesting for dinner lately? I think it's safe to assume that the meal that the Shunammite woman offers Elisha is pretty good. Because following this first offer of hospitality, a pattern develops. From then on, whenever Elisha passed that way, he stopped in for a meal. This in itself is a generous provision. But the woman's hospitality doesn't stop there. She goes to extraordinary lengths on the prophet's behalf, petitioning her husband to build and furnish a room on top of their house so that he can not only enjoy a meal, but also stay if he wants to. Consider the time and expense involved in creating that room. Not simply an extra guest room, but a room specifically set aside for the man of God, for his use. The woman is clearly astute. The text calls her great, and with this, alongside describing her as strongly urging Elisha to accept a meal, we start to get an inkling of her strong character, as well as her wealth, her status, and her influence. We might even pause to wonder, what does she hope to gain from Elisha? Does she have an ulterior motive? Does she seek to get something from this man? She's noted to her husband she thinks Elisha is a holy man of God. She's seeking a favor? Our doubts about the genuineness of her hospitality are about to be put to rest. One day, when Elisha stopped by and is lying down in his specially prepared upper room, he has his servant Gehazi call the Shunammite woman so he can speak to her and ask what can be done, given all the trouble she's gone to on his behalf. But she dismisses his offer, needing not king or commander to help her, and leaving Elisha scratching his head as to what can be done for her. It seems that her generous hospitality is truly genuine, extended in gracious kindness for Elisha's benefit. Upon realizing that he is a man of God, even greater lengths have been gone to. But they seem to stem from a genuine desire to serve Elisha. Out of what? When Elisha refers to the trouble she's gone to in the passage, the term used is trembling, indicating an almost like anxious care for him. Is this reverence she's showing through her care? Can it be that this woman of the idolatrous north is one who truly reveres God and his prophet. With Elijah stumped for what he can do for her, it is his servant Gehazi who offers a suggestion. He points out that the woman has no son and her husband is old. Suddenly, we the reader feel our hearts quickening as we catch the distant echoes of other women's stories. Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Hannah, whispered in the background. Dare we hope? Elijah's already given us some indication of what he's capable of. Not long after his master Elijah was taken up in a whirlwind, he was confronted with land that was barren. And the prophets at Jericho in 2:19-22 had told him, the location of the city is good, but the water is bad, and the land is unfruitful. Elisha restored it. When Sarah was told that she'd have a son, she laughed. How might the Shunammite woman respond? When Elisha summons her again and tells her, at this season, in due time, you shall embrace a son, we might expect laughter and rejoicing. But instead, we hear the sharp words of a woman who knows the deep pain and grief of longing for a child that will not come. No, my Lord, O man of God, do not deceive your servant. This hope feels too great to bear. It seems even she does not dare to believe that this is possible, even for this man of God. And yet, the woman conceived and bore a son at that season and in due time, as Elisha declared to her. Praise God! Are we going to get our happily ever after? Wait, it seems this narrative is only just getting started. When the child was older, he went out to his father among the reapers and complained of a sore head. He's carried back to his mother. She holds him until noon when he dies. What? Wait. We fast forward through his childhood to get to this? His death? And now what do we expect? We expect keening. We expect weeping. We expect the planning of a funeral. But rather than being immobilized by shock and grief, the narrative relentlessly draws our attention on, away from the child, away from death, to his mother, to the woman herself. We're given no indication of what is going on underneath for her. But on the outside, she is calm and laser focused. She lays her child on the man of God's bed and shuts the door. No one else is to know of this, not even her husband. To him, she asks for a servant and a donkey, explaining she needs to go to the man of God and return again. Brushing aside his questions, she says, Shalom, peace, or as the English renders it, it will be all right. It's she who saddles the donkey, giving explicit instructions to urge the animal on. She wants to move at speed to Elisha at Mount Carmel. Elisha sees her coming. And in another display of exceptional hospitality, this time from the prophet, he doesn't even wait for her to arrive, but he sends Gehazi out to ask, are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is the child all right? And in the Hebrew, we get that term 3 times, shalom. Shalom, is it shalom? And she replies, shalom, it is all right. Meanwhile, we, the readers, are screaming, it is not all right. Shalom has been obliterated. There's no peace. How can it ever be all right again? It's only now, finally, in the presence of the man of God, that we're allowed to see the woman's anguish. Despite Gehazi's intent to push her away, she remains grasping Elisha's feet. And despite the prophet recognizing that she's in bitter distress, he's also confronted with the fact that he doesn't know why. God has hidden it from him. The great prophet, upon whom rests a double portion of the spirit of Elijah, This man of God whose spoken words of life healed the land, made oil flow, who we know in the future will demonstrate incredible insight about the dishonest dealings of his servant Gehazi after the healing of Naaman. But this prophet, in this moment, is confronted with his own limitations. Elijah can and has wielded God's power, but he is not the source of that power. He is not the source of life. God is, and it is God who knows all things, not Elijah. Is this, as Beale suggests, a moment in which Elisha is humbled? Then these words tumble out of the woman's mouth. Did I ask my Lord for a son? Did I not say, do not mislead me? Her son. She's here because of her son. Armed with this crucial insight, Elisha springs into action. He sends Gehazi with his staff and the greatest of urgency, telling him to place the staff on the child's face. I can almost see Elisha turning back to the woman after having dispatched Gehazi. I wonder, what was he going to do? Was he going to try and console her? Was he going to offer her water or food or rest? After all, she's just travelled a significant distance in great distress. What's he thinking, feeling, knowing that this woman's son, a son he gifted to her, is dead? Does he think the staff will work? Or is he merely making it appear as if he's taken action, done all that he can? What else can he do in the face of God's silence? The mother of the child makes all these questions moot. As the Lord lives, she says, and as you yourself live, I will not leave without you. Do you recognize those words? These are almost exactly Elijah's own words that he said to Elijah, not once, not twice, but 3 times before Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. This was Elijah's own impassioned declaration of faith and commitment. What shifts in the air, in his spirit, as Elisha hears his own words spoken out to him in this desperate moment? This remarkable woman has traversed a significant distance to bring these words, refusing to accept the reality of death, holding tenaciously to a resolute faith, faith in Elisha and faith in the God whose power of life he wields. Following her declaration, the text simply says, so Elijah rose up and followed her. Is it, as Brueggemann suggests, that the power of the prophet, wondrous as it is mobilized only by the insistent, contentious woman who in her hope and her anger refuses to let things be? Gehazi goes on ahead, lays the staff on the boy's face as instructed, and it does nothing. When Elijah comes to the house and sees the child lying dead on his bed, he goes into the room, shuts the door, and prays. For us as readers who are blessed to hold both Old and New Scripture in our hearts and our hands, this scene stirs other memories to life. We're reminded of when Elijah was faced with the death of the son of the widow of Zarephath. And in our mind's eyes, we see Elijah crying out to God, stretching out on the child 3 times before he's restored to life. Here, Elisha prays only once, stretches himself out twice, and the boy is first warmed, then sneezes, and opens his eyes. Miracle, life. Clearly, Elisha is even greater than Elijah. But how can we stop there? How can we not also be summoned forward through the story of God's redemptive history to another set of interwoven lives and stories. Jairus, the woman with the issue of blood, and the restoration of Jairus' daughter by another, even greater one. One whose life-giving power is so great that when another woman of exceptional faith stretches out to simply touch his garment, she is healed. And when Jesus enters the room of a dead child, there's no praying, no stretching out of his body multiple times. Jesus simply stretches out to take the girl's hand, telling her to rise, and she is restored to life. Jesus is shown to us as not just greater than Elijah and Elisha, through whom more of God's power is at work. Jesus, full of the Spirit, is God in human flesh, the one who ultimately defeats death through his own death and resurrection, bringing about the redemption of all things, a renewed creation that will come in full when he returns again. Bring on that day, I say. But this is more than just a future. It's more than just a distant hope for us, isn't it? It's an inbreaking reality that we as his people are called to embody, to live out and to point to now in the fullness of our lives together. May we be freshly awed by the gift of this resurrection power and all we are summoned to become as we witness this final scene in this complex roller coaster of a narrative. With the child restored to life again, Elisha calls the Shunammite woman one more time. And we see the faith-filled, tenacious woman come, fall at her feet, take her son, and go. At this point, I'm not sure how you're feeling. I feel like I need a cup of tea and a lie down. What an epic, tension-filled account. And remember, this whole thing came about because a woman offered a meal to someone who was passing by. Perhaps as we get that cup of tea, we can ponder the power of hospitality, because I think one of the very many things that this deeply rich text offers us is the insight that genuine hospitality becomes a springboard for mutual transformation that brings life. It weaves lives together in a way that blesses, stretches, confronts, generates shared insights and experiences that's not possible to glimpse on our own. The woman's simple act of hospitality to Elisha brings transformation to her home, as she sees God do the impossible. It brings her a son twice and draws out of her a deep confidence and trust in the power of God. Conversely, her hospitality and then her deep faith and tenacity and confrontation draw out of Elisha insight into his own limits, as well as his tremendous capabilities and faithful service to God. It seems then that together, in dependence on God and in pursuit of life, of shalom, of flourishing, God's immense power of renewal is at work among us. Not that our own tenacious faith can somehow force God's hand, but that we recognize that God's life-giving redemptive presence is already at work among us. That both our faith and our recognition of our limitations requires that we remain utterly dependent on God and woven together as God's people. We are tasked as a people, as God's people, with the responsibility to hold hope and seek life together, to be a mutually transformed and transforming community. In what ways can you call forth today the very best in others, for the glory of God and for the sake of the world.
The Baptist NZ Podcast Network.